Okay, I believe we have a quorum and it's time to start. So welcome everybody to tonight's September 3rd meeting of the San Diego County Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board. Just a reminder to members of the public that you'll have opportunities to address the board during non-agenda public comment and then following the Americans with Disabilities Act presentation by the Sheriff's Department. And to do that, you'll need to submit a speaker slip before the start of those two items. So if you haven't already submitted a speaker slip for non-agenda public comment, please give one to Naris, who will rate. Naris, can you raise your hand? I think most people know who she is, but just in case, before we get going. And with that, we will call the meeting to order. And are there any statements of any board members for cause? We don't have any board members participating virtually tonight, correct?
Correct. We have
Okay,
none.
all right, thank you. Then we will jump straight into public comment. Oh, yeah, we'll call the roll. Sorry. So let's go ahead and call the roll. I jumped straight to number 3. Go ahead, Bonnie, thank you.
Chair Marianne Pintor,
Here.
Vice Chair Nadia Keene-Ayub, Secretary Bonnie Kank, Dr. Lee Brown, Andrew Hayes, Ariana Federico Mondragon,
Here.
Tim Ware, G.I. Wilson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Now we are ready to move over to public comment. How many speakers do we have online and in person?
Correct. We have 4 in-person requests to speak, and as of now, I can see 3, now 4 online requests to speak. So if
Okay.
you allow me, we can start
Let's-
calling
please,
the in-person.
please.
All right. First, we will start with Sandy Weddle. 2 minutes or 3? 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Weddle. I represent North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. I am also here as a grieving mother. My son Saxon Rodriguez died in Central Jail on July 20th, 2021. Saxon was there barely 4 days when he was found dead in his cell. The medical examiners determined his death was accidental. I disagree with that for a couple reasons. The proper timely cell checks were not done that day, and many other days, according to the sheriff's own self-reporting of hundreds of improper, untimely, or failed cell checks that year my son died. And this was after the state audit was released. Another reason, Saxon overdosed on fentanyl. How did fentanyl and other deadly drugs get into Central Jail accidentally when there's drug sniffing dogs, body cavity searches, x-ray scanners? Central Jail continues to have the highest number of overdoses and suspected overdoses and Narcan deploys, according to the sheriff's open data website. Central Jail has 102 suspected overdoses in 2021, 93 in 2022. Last year was 61, and as of this year, just 8. But I noticed the format for reporting overdoses changed several months ago, and it looks like information is being left off the report. This is my 3rd time asking to verify numbers are correct and that the information from the sheriff is accurate regarding drug overdoses. I am also requesting CLERB continue to push for jurisdiction over medical staff so there are no repeat deaths like that of Elisa Serna or Omar Moreno Arroyo, Gilbert Gill. Same with the mental health screening and care, proper placement so we don't have repeated deaths like Kevin Mills, Matthew Settles, Omar Jr. Ornelius, and Raymond Vogelman. Jail is not a place to house, hide, or treat people that are having a mental health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Sabrina Weddle.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sabrina Weddle, Saxon Rodriguez's older sister. As most of you know, I come here, first, let's say Saxon's been gone 1,141 days. That's 37 months. And since that time, almost 50 deaths since Saxon has died. I have attended these meetings since Saxon has died, which would be roughly about 30, should be have 37 but there's not a meeting every month. Every meeting I state, Brian Powell, Andrew Randovich, Maxwell Rimple, and Andre Rans are the 4 deputies that were working on the 4th floor. Team 2 will never be held responsible for my brother's death. Yet they failed at checking him on time. The medical examiner stated that 5 minutes and that 28 seconds cost my brother his life. Had they had done their job properly, my brother would still be alive to this day. Melissa Burns, Reggie Barreto, Carrie Cavello, Ria Encarnacia, Caitlin Hendricks, Marlena Banza, Kelly Payne, Levy Santos, and Chantel Williams, the 9 nurses that were working in San Diego Central Jail. 9 nurses couldn't save my brother. Why? Because the 4 deputies that were working did not check him on time. I have stood outside of the San Diego County Jail, George Bailey, Vista Jail, Las Colinas Jail, and have watched numerous firefighters and ambulance go inside due to overdoses. And again, it's lack of care for these human beings. The change that I have seen is so-called random searches. I know today we will be introduced to our new the shoes to fill Paul Parker's spot. And I really hope to see the change start happening again. The investigations be actually investigated. I mean, we look at the agenda and we see justified, not justified. I mean, what's the point of people making complaints?
Next, we will call Brenda Settles.
Hi, my name is Brenda Settles. I'm the mother of Matthew Settles, who died at George Bailey on August 16th, 2022. And every day I miss my son. He was very loved, but he had a mental illness that was very severe. He was on conservatorship, and yet he was transferred into a facility where he wasn't taking all his meds. He couldn't even be seen by his case manager. I called and said, my son is at risk. I know, I can tell. And I said, can I talk to someone on his care team? Can I have any connection at all? And they said no. And then I got the call from the medical examiner's office that my son was gone. So I think mental illness is a big issue. And I think just the fact that he was on conservatorship didn't save him or keep him. They didn't even know that he was transferred to George Bailey. So I just hope that we have some better ways of treating people with mental illness, because it was very well known that he had that, but he was an amazing person when he was doing well. It's just a very hard illness and needs to be dealt with better in the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call David Settles.
Yes. Hello, CLERB. I'm David Settles. I'm the brother of Matthew Settles. That was my mom. So I'm here just representing my brother. A couple new faces. So I've been coming for 2 years talking here, but I'll just kind of go over the highlights of my brother's case. My mom already touched that. My brother had schizophrenia. He got it when he was in college, so he had it for a long time, but he had many good years. So he was very close to all of us. My kids grew up going to vacations with us. So he did have another crisis where for 2 years, where he had to go back in treatment. He was actually at the county mental hospital where he needed help. He was kind of in crisis, was getting delusions. And, he had some issues and he was sent to the jail, and we feared that it was going to be a death sentence, hearing all that happened. And I know my mom did everything she could to help him or contact him. And when he went back into, when they took him directly from the county mental hospital into the jail system, we don't know why he wasn't put into the psych unit. He was put into the general population. He was assaulted. my mom did everything to try to reach him. Then we lost contact with him and he was transferred to George Bailey without us even knowing. My mom called every day. It wasn't until we found out he died there after 2 weeks that we even knew he had been transferred there. And he died in solitary confinement. And, he did not get the treatment he needed. So I'm here just to represent my brother. We're still looking for answers. We really had zero contact. The 2 months, what happened to him while he was in jail, we really had no information. So, and I'm here to, we need a strong CLERB to help prevent this for other families, for mental health, drugs, and that, we need a strong CLERB to help make these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Pintar. If you want, we can start pulling the online. And as of now, we have 8 requests to speak. Okay, first we will call Karen Remus.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Thank you. Good evening, CLERB members. My name is Karen Remus. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a second-generation San Diegan. On July 7th, the Union Tribune published a story headlined, quote, "After $15 million settlement, San Diego County still confronts a slew of other jail death lawsuits," end quote. The UT article details the horrific and brutal circumstances of many in-custody deaths and stated, quote, "The allegations in case after case are remarkably constant. Duties and medical staff violate policies, ignore pleas for help, and allow people under their care to die unnecessary deaths," end quote. CLERB members, as an attorney licensed for over 30 years, I understand that the mechanisms at your disposal may seem limited. You can make recommendations, but you cannot require the Sheriff's Department to adopt those recommendations. Despite these limitations, you are nonetheless charged with oversight by your charter. And I'm here to remind you that you have power that you have not yet used. Use your voices. It is beyond time for you to ask for intervention from entities that can bring the dramatic and immediate change needed. Request help now from both the State Attorney General and U.S. Attorney General.
Next, we will call Tom Packard.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I'm Tom Packard. I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice North County. In 2022, I asked you to provide for each meeting attachments that indicate the progress and the current status of all outstanding recommendations. I haven't been able to find this information in any of your documents posted for yourselves in the community. If this information is currently available, please tell me where it is. In addition to increasing your accountability to the community, this might provide impetus to you and the sheriff to act more expeditiously on recommendations. I'd most specifically like to know the status of your recommendation to have oversight over civilian staff. I assume this is somewhere in the county bureaucracy. For that recommendation and all outstanding recommendation, please share the recommendation, its original referral date, what step is it's at in the process, what steps are planned, and when a final response is expected. Most of this information you could get directly from the sheriff or the probation department with hopes of making them more responsive and accountable. I've also noticed that recent meeting minutes have little or no detail on what actually happened on many agenda items, and documentation of comments from the community are not consistently noted in any way. Sharing this information would give the community some optimism that you're actually paying attention to our comments and using some of the input in your decision-making. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Next, we will call Darwin Fishman.
Good evening, Darwin Fishman, Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego, he, him, his. Thank you. I wanted to say that the selection for your EO Brett Kalina, very disappointed. I served as the District 1 rep. And I just wanted to say that we fought to have the community involvement. Thank you, Tom and Serge, for leading that charge. And it feels like all of it was just clearly smoke and mirrors. You weren't serious about community input and the direction you want CLERB to go in, as well as also completely disregarding the state audit report and taking that seriously, and how you guys were slammed for the work that you've done and your responsibility for in custody deaths. You had an opportunity to really carve out a new direction for CLERB and new leadership, and you failed miserably with that. Now you're going to have even more scrutiny and pressure now to show that with this selection that the in custody deaths not only will go down, but that there'll be substantial changes for the conditions in the jails, and also acknowledging what's been cited by previous speakers: one, family members that are here that have lost loved ones, the impacted families, and two, the fact that what's been brought about has been things like lawsuits and class action lawsuits, and that's been the hammer that's forced the change on the sheriff's department, not because of goodwill or because of the leadership and the direction they moved in. CLERB has failed also in that role to help show the sheriff's department the way forward to provide the leadership on these issues. It's failed to go to the meetings like its supervisors and apply the pressure necessary that's stated in the state audits report that clearly shows what needs to be done. It's very disappointing. It's clearly more work, more pressure needs to be applied, and will continue to come and to push you guys to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Paloma Serna.
My name is Paloma Serna. I'm the mother of Elisa Serna, who died November 11, 2019, just 5 days in custody. I'm with the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and the Saving Lives in Custody California, who is responsible for Elisa's death, while the disgraceful William Gore, who let the killing take place in the jails for years, and also the disgraceful Kelly Martinez, who was an undersheriff and was aware of all the in custody deaths and the ones that are still taking place in her jails. The disgraceful Barbara Lee, who was head over all medical, and she never disciplined or trained the nurses and the doctors, or nursing, I'm sorry. The disgusting retired deputy Rashawn Foster, who drugged Elisa back into the cell in the midst of having a seizure without calling 911. The disgusting deputy Lucas Lacey Lovisa, who ignored Elisa's illness for 2 days, placed Elisa in that choking to death position, walked away and let her die without calling 911. The disgusting deputy Tony Hall Bennett, who ignored Elisa's illness as she sat in front of the video monitors, walked past Elisa's cell 5 to 6 times, checking on signs of life as Elisa lay dead on the floor without calling 911. The so-called nurse Dana Lee Pasquale, who interacted with Elisa in 2018 and treated her for her withdrawal, but denied her medical treatment in 2019, stood over Elisa for minutes, watching her die, and never thought about calling 911. The so-called doctor, Frederic Von Lente, who saw Elisa twice that day, the day she died, but refusing to see Elisa a third time after having another seizure, stated that Elisa was faking her symptoms, even though Elisa asked for an IV since she was badly dehydrated, never took Elisa's vital, but never called 911. The so-called doctor, Carol.
Thank you. Next, we will call Leslie Crawford.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you just fine.
Thank you. I'm speaking tonight in support of North County Equity and Justice and Yusuf Miller. I'm the mother of Raymond Vogelman, as you know him, 22-124, death, subpoena sent, and you don't include attachment C anymore, so I guess that's up to date. It's been 1 year and 11 months on Thursday, and I know it'll take forever because they can hide behind the fact they're looking for the attackers when actually there were sheriffs that had neglected duty. And that's a good excuse, but for my fellow sufferers, they have to deal with the same dark hole without the dual investigation There's pure disdain and lack of attention. And management is the cause. The Riverside County Sheriff was quoted as saying, "They are just under my roof. I am not responsible for what happens to them there." And that's just how the San Diego County Sheriff's Department feels. And the policy starts at top, not at the bottom. You can't change what is happening in the jails. You can't change the policy of management. I know CLERB has very little control over the situation, but they do have some control in pushing the implementation and recently passed California statutes and mandates. That would help this situation. We can't change the world, but we can work to improve what happens right here in San Diego County. Death happens, but it doesn't need to be encouraged by the people who should know and strive to do better. The death of our loved ones before their time hangs like a cloud that never goes away. It's a black hole inside us. I thank you for your time and please do your best. The world needs us all to do our best. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Diana Serna.
Hello, yes, I would like to give my time to my mom, Paloma Serna.
The so-called doctor, Carol Ann Gilmore, who saw Elisa the day before and a few hours before she died, did not treat Elisa for her alcohol and drugs withdrawal and refused to take vitals or examine her on the day she died. She just stood there doing nothing, never called 911. And let's not forget the other nurses, Hazel Kamama and Lorna Roque, who ignored and lied on Elisa's medical records or soap notes. They watched Elisa fall, vomit, and blamed her since she was a drug addict. They never called 911. And also, let's not forget the deputies. These people who's supposed to serve and protect the public, the people. All they did was talk among themselves, pass word that Lisa was a drug addict, that she was no good. They ignored her. And they never call 911. And two, I would like to know if the current chair contacted Kelly Martinez and asked her to attend the CLERB meeting. We've been waiting. And also two, when will the CLERB have jurisdiction or oversight over the nurses? Because it is easy for the sheriff's department to blame medical because no one can oversee them. They will not be investigated. We need to continue to push for deputies and medical staff. They're the ones who's supplying the drugs in the jails. Las Vegas has more sense. They have their employees come in with clear bags. Why is the sheriff's department not doing this? Because they do not care. And also too, I would like to know, why is our minutes only 2 and not 3? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Yusuf Miller.
Good evening. My name is Yusuf Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody campaign. And we have a serious, serious crisis, and it's only going to get worse looking at the legislation that is coming out here lately. We're already over-incarcerating the homeless. We're already over-incarcerating people with addiction and mental health. And we have legislation coming out, or that is already out, which makes it illegal to be homeless on the streets without any further resources for them to actually have. And behind that is also coming where they're going to criminalize mental health even more without the resources to put them in any facilities. We don't have it. The only facilities we have is the jails. So from all the things, the stories and the scenarios that you've heard thus far, they're only going to get worse if we don't get a handle on them now. We're going to over incarcerate the homeless even more. We're going to increase the incarceration of mental health instead of programs. And the in custody death rate is going to spoil and get worse all over again. We need to be proactive about this. All the things that our colleagues are saying that their loved ones have already been lost through that. We're going to find that there's going to be a surge if we're not careful in making sure that these things are not going to have the same reverberating effect. We can't sit back and start celebrating and saying that, okay, our numbers are down thus far for this year when people in custody are still being mistreated in their dignity. We have people calling us, the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, and saying, my son or my daughter has been mistreated. They've been beat. They had the knees on their neck. They've had all kinds of things that you've been hearing thus far. And these complaints are coming your way. They're coming to you. And it doesn't matter when you can still save or reduce the in custody death, but still treat people like garbage. So we have to make sure that that's not happening. We have to make sure that the dignity is still part of our goals and not just simply saving lives, which is very, very important, but the dignity of these
Mr.
people who are
Yusuf.
still human beings.
Mr.
Thank you.
Yusuf, thank you so much. Next, we will call Diana Sanchez. Diana, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Diana Sanchez. My daughter's name was Diana Granillo. She died on July 13th, 2022. She was in custody at Las Colinas Jail, and she died because of medical negligence there. She was found unconscious in her cell, and they refused to give her, or they didn't give her CPR for 12 whole minutes. 12 minutes they didn't give her CPR. I want accountability. I want transparency as to why they medical didn't not call 911 when they found her unresponsive there in her cell for 12 whole minutes. She was just because she was a drug addict. I find that that's just a lot of discrimination just because they saw her there. They didn't give her the help she needed. She asked for her medication. She was withdrawing for fentanyl. They didn't give her her medication in time. She was dehydrated. They put her in general population when she should have been watched more carefully because she was withdrawing from drugs. And I feel like, and me being a recovering addict myself, I know firsthand how they treat the inmates there. I've been there before. And just to get medical attention in the jail, it's hard. You put an inmate request and they don't see you right away. They treat us like just no respect at all. If you're an addict, they just don't give you the medical attention that is needed. My daughter deserved the best medical attention and she didn't get that. She suffered. She died from she died from a hole in her stomach that she had an ulcer, and now she left a little boy behind, and it's very heartbreaking for me to have to just go through this pain of losing my daughter. I want transparency. I want I want Kelly Martinez to attend the meeting and give some answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Pintar, we have one comment to be read for the public.
This is from Deidre McLeod. My name is Deidre McLeod. I am a constituent of Board Supervisor Joel Anderson, District 2. My pronouns are she/her. I urge CLERB to continue to push for body scans of employees to keep deadly drugs from entering San Diego jails. Although the new screening process is a step in the right direction, ultimately it is not enough. I'd like to call your attention to an actual quote from Assistant Sheriff Lopez presentation at the August meeting at 34 minutes and 30 seconds, and quote, "I think there is enough ethics. You have to realize the canine unit does not work with anyone inside the detention facility. So these are not people that I would say know each other on a daily basis. And I hope and know there's enough ethics that basically if a dog is alerting on somebody, that basically we are sequestering that person to the appropriate area and talking the appropriate action, unquote. By his own admission, the new process relies basically on canine officers turning in fellow deputies who may be smuggling drugs. Asking police to police themselves in this way is simply not practical given the insular culture of law enforcement today. While the X-ray machine and Celestial Plus detector will find metal objects, more is needed to stop incoming drugs than just the hope that canine unit officers aren't friends with the people that dogs alert on. Please do not drop your efforts and stop dealing deadly drugs into entering San Diego detention facilities, including asking the sheriff to require full regular body scans of all employees.
Thank you, Chair Pintar. We have one more request to speak online, if you allow me to call that. Next, we will call Michael Serna. Michael, can you hear?
Yes, my daughter Elisa Serna died November 11th in 2019 at the hands of medical staff and the sheriff's department in Las Colinas. It is over 4 years and it does never get any easier or harder, even to talk about it, even to this day. I hear time and time again this evening the pain and the sorrow that we feel, each affected family members and the other community members that are aghast at the treatment that our loved ones have received at the hands of Sheriff William Gore, Kelly Martinez, and so many others. Because we know the attitude of indifference starts at the top. And the attitude that these deputies and these nurses have start with their leaders, the leadership. They never have done nothing all these years. They never listened to the CLERB all these years. They just turned a blind eye to what's going on. They wipe their hands as if they are innocent. And then they turn around and blame the victims. This is disgusting over and over again. You have heard tonight this individual who is the new chair. You have heard our plea and our cry over and over tonight. What will you do now that the ball is in your court, so to speak? What will you do? Will you face Kelly Martinez and push and demand change? Or will you, like these other board members, go along with the program? Thank you for your time.
That concludes our request to speak.
Sorry about that. Let me start over. I believe that everyone that did make a request to speak during non-agenda public comment got a chance to speak. If you did not, please send an email to clerb@sdcounty.ca.gov, and our CLERB staff will make sure that the board receives it. Also, if you wish to make a comment on item number 5, that is the Americans with Disability Act presentation by the Sheriff's Department, please get a speaker slip comment to Naras before that item starts. Okay, we will now go to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Can you call the roll, Bonnie?
Chair Marianne Pintar,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nadia Kinayoub,
Yes.
Bonnie Kank, yes. Dr. Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Hayes,
Yes.
Ariana Federico Mondragon,
Yes.
Tim Ware,
Abstain. Absent.
G.I. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item number 5, which is our presentation and our training for tonight. Let's see, is Captain Derek Williamson here? Can join us. Thank you. And Naris, are people submitting requests to speak?
I have only one from Sabrina Whittle for the presentation.
Okay, if there's anyone else who wishes to speak following this presentation, if you could please get those requests to Naris either via email or handing her a speaker slip here up front. Okay, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for your invite. I am Captain Derek Williamson with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. I am assigned to our detention operations, and under one of the areas under my responsibility is our Americans with Disabilities Act unit. With me tonight, I have Lieutenant Livian Cole, who has been with the unit since its beginning in July of 2023, and Sergeant Kyle Pike, who has been with the unit since March, and he recently completed ADA coordinator certification. Next slide, please. I'm trying to just give you a little nod. So, a little background, and my eyes are gonna trouble me here. A little background on the ADA. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into effect in 1990 by President George Bush. It is a civil rights matter. I'm not going to read directly from the slide on everything. The ADA is comprised of 5 different titles. In the next slide, we will go over which title applies to the San Diego Sheriff's Department and our facilities. But according to the Center for Disease Control, CDC, calculates approximately 1 in every 4 Americans has a disability. And not verbatim, but the ADA defines a disability as an impairment that impacts 1 or more major life activities. So applicable to our jails is Title II of the ADA, which goes to all state and local governments must provide qualified individuals with disabilities an equal opportunity to benefit from all of their programs, services, and activities. So a little background on our ADA unit, and I'm going to speak off the cuff. If I miss anything that is up here, please, during the question portion, ask me to come back to it. So the unit was formed in July 2023. The core of that unit involved in all of the day-to-day operations includes a commander, captain, a lieutenant, sergeant, 3 deputies, a supervising nurse, a registered nurse, and a legal advisor. However, the unit regularly meets with a multidisciplinary group from the Sheriff's Department that includes personnel from reentry services and counseling, our mental health staff, the jail population management unit, which is classification, in-services training, and facilities management, which is our maintenance and construction, among others. Most efforts so far have been related to the detention facilities, but we have also begun providing tablets with virtual remote interpretation to our patrol stations to assist in the public interaction for those who use sign language as a primary form of communication. The ADA deputies and assigned nurse at the unit will interview anyone who was identified during the intake process or by request that has ADA mobility, ADA hearing, or ADA vision within 7 days of that identification, 60 days after that, and every 6 months thereafter. The unit has conducted over 2,100 interviews since its creation. These are conducted to identify and ensure those individuals appropriate housing through their accessibility needs, the appropriate medical equipment, any accommodations for those mobility needs, effective communication devices for the deaf and hard of hearing, and appropriate accommodations for those with vision disabilities that are uncorrectable by eyeglasses. ADA matters that are primarily related to mental health or medical conditions that impair a major life activity are handled by the subject matter experts in those fields. While some of our facilities are undergoing some rather significant construction to achieve ADA accessible housing options, the unit members regularly work to assure educational program access and inclusion in incarcerated worker programs for those in our custody with disabilities and medical conditions that may have previously restricted their involvement. We've recently deployed, on some occasions, overnight battery packs, which have made it capable for CPAP users and those with rechargeable medical prosthetics to participate in our incarcerated worker program. Additionally, the tablets with the virtual remote interpretation, VRI, are used to communicate with the incarcerated individuals in our custody that use sign language as their form of communication. On the next slide. Although I'm not sure if I missed anything from there. I probably didn't. Auxiliary aids and services available. This is a little more detail on some of that stuff I talked about. Up top, that is a picture of the interaction that takes place over one of the VRI applications available. And those VRI applications aren't just available on the tablets that we've distributed, but we've also made them available and pushed to most of our sheriff's department smartphones that are in use in the field and at our facilities. And then at the bottom right there, that is an example of the Ubi Duo. It's a wireless communication device that allows somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing to type back and forth with the person that is interacting with them. Next slide. Other effective communication devices that are available to the deaf and hard of hearing are TTY. It's mostly phased out and not used as much as it used to be, but that is the typed over the telephone communication. Captioned telephones. We have a application in our phone services program for our incarcerated individuals where we enable somebody who is hard of hearing but not entirely deaf and does not use sign language as their form of communication to talk over the kiosk to a called party, and all of the called parties' responses are typed up on screen for them to read. And then VRS, video relay services. This is one of the more common communication matters now. And our primary provider for that is Purple Communications. And that's another application we've made available in our video visitation kiosks in the modules, where when somebody is identified as deaf and uses sign language as their primary communication device, we enable that as an option in the system, and they can go and make those phone calls and either sign directly through an interpreter, or if the receiving individual of that call is registered with the FCC as a ADA hearing recipient, it allows them to communicate directly, not through an interpreter. Next one. These have also been deployed. These are our vests. The program is voluntary. Nobody is forced to wear these. But for those individuals that are concerned that their disability might impact other matters related to the security and safety of the facility, they can wear that to make them easily identifiable as somebody who needs a little more accommodation. Communication with the ADA unit. We have several ways that an individual can reach out to us. Our regular incarcerated request and grievance procedure is one of those forms of communication. So the communication with the unit doesn't just happen at that 7-day, 60-day, and 6-month interview. The individuals can reach out to us through the request procedure, the grievance procedure, or through a 24-hour phone line that during non-business hours, they are allowed to leave a message. The sergeant and lieutenant with me tonight maintain that messaging machine on a daily basis. There's also our ADA notifications at sdsheriff.gov down at the bottom. Next slide, please. Not only the people in our custody, but also their family members, loved ones, those that are concerned about them. This information is also available on the sheriff's public site, but the unit regularly communicates with the loved ones, the family members of those individuals in our custody. Do I have any questions from the board?
Are you done with your presentation?
I am done with the presentation.
Okay, I just didn't want to have everyone jump in. Well, if you still had more to present. We are able to take questions from the board. Who would like to go first? Sounds like Dr. Brown.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Given these numbers of 1 in 4 people could be considered to have a disability, do you feel like you are adequately staffed to deal with what's happening in the jails? Do you think that you have enough people under your direction to handle all the needs that you may have? Because, you know, and I'm talking about primarily from a screening standpoint, you know, people coming in, and I'll be the first to admit, once a person is go to jail, I feel like we've all lost somehow, especially with drugs, and I failed them because I'm talking about answering to I've had relatives that go to jail, and I feel just as much guilt as anybody else, when it comes to that. So, tell me more about what you do there. I mean, it's got to be a lot of need for people, people with disabilities, and you consider the mental and the homeless population, like one of our callers said. How do you navigate that?
Well, I do have the benefit of having some really good coworkers on this, especially with the two that are here with me tonight. Would I love to have way more staffing? I think our entire department would love to have way more staffing. But with the core members of the unit, the multidisciplinary group that we meet with every 2 weeks, and then the recently started liaison program of deputies at the facilities who have been directed towards some online resource training, and then will also participate in some regular meetings. Like I said, the unit's only been around for a year. I think what we've accomplished in a year is pretty significant, but it's not perfect. We're always growing, and the more we continue to get some of this training out to our department, the easier it'll be for everybody to embrace it. I can say that from my time arriving at the unit in March, this has been an extremely educational experience for me.
I have a follow-up to that. Is there any way that you can get all your deputies somehow partially trained with some kind of ADA knowledge, given that the challenge that we have with the homeless and mentally challenged? Is that a direction you can foresee that the department would go?
Yeah, one of the recent things that we achieved with our core unit members is they've been attending all of the jail briefings for every single one of the teams at the facilities, the morning shift and the night shift. And they've been doing briefing training there. We've done some train the trainer training sessions with the training coordinators at the different units. And we're currently working with the in-service training division to spread that training out even more.
Thank you. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ariana, and then we'll go to Nadia, and then we'll go to GI.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My question, if you could share more a little bit about the process for family members of incarcerated folks and how they submit complaints and how long does that take? If we can have a little bit more information of their involvement of those complaints to make accommodations for their family members.
So basically because I'm the one that answers most of the letters and also phone calls when the public calls, we get requests via mail, via email, and phone call. Myself or my Sergeant Pike will communicate via written letter response, or we'll give them a call back and we'll have a conversation on their loved ones, care and needs while they're in facility. And when needed, we will go out, do additional interviews of that person. We'll have medical see them if they need it, counseling services, mental health, and things like that. So we are probably making phone calls and replying with written responses weekly, multiple times a week.
And then I do have a question. I know it's fairly new, the unit. Is there like a work plan that you have put together of like where you would like to be within the next year? How are you staying updated or just being more accountable to the work that you're doing for folks? Yeah, some of the major things on our timeline have been revision of some policies and procedures, which we completed some of that in June of this year. The major ADA construction at San Diego Central Jail is scheduled to be completed in December of this year. And then there are continued plans for construction and training beyond 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a two-part question. Do you consider neurodivergence to fall under ADA, and what steps do you take to ensure that those inmates are handled appropriately?
I believe it does fall under ADA, under the mental health, cognitive, and learning categories. And our mental health staff are the ones that deal primarily with that. We have several programs in our facilities. We have a competency restoration program, an outpatient step-down program, and our psychiatric stabilization unit. That are some of the major aspects of it. But once somebody even clears one of those programs, the mental health staff does do continuity of care throughout their time in our custody.
Thank you. And if you could just clarify, is this something you work with probation? Because my understanding is probation is a separate department from you, correct?
Correct. That is correct. Probation is a separate department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
GI.
I have basically three questions. If an individual has a mobility issue, needs a wheelchair, walker, crutches, what resources do you have to get them a wheelchair, walker, crutches, or cane, or whatever? Do you have resources to do that?
That's okay. I could hear you. We do provide all of that. If somebody comes into our custody and they have a device that is so specific that it can't be replicated with one of our devices on hand, then they are allowed to keep that device during their time in our custody. But our medical staff issue wheelchairs, canes, walkers, splint boots to individuals, and those individuals do fall under our 7-day, 60-day, and 6-month recaps.
So an individual could go 7 days without a walker or a cane or a wheelchair?
No, they issue those devices at intake.
Second question. In your training, do the staff, your officers, your deputies, and yourself ever have the opportunity to spend a day in a wheelchair trying to get around the jails, the detention facilities?
I would not say a whole day, but recently when our staff conducted the train the trainer training, they had a wheelchair, a walker, a cane on hand, not just so the deputies attending the training could talk over ways to accommodate individuals during normal jail processes like searches, but also to sit in it and experience it.
And my last question is that you stated that you don't have any, let's say, jurisdiction over the medical or the mental health aspects of ADA, but do you coordinate and have intimate coordination liaison with those individuals who do?
Yes, not only at we have biweekly meetings where all the other multidisciplinary group members come in, but the office that we work in is our medical services division command. So our mental health director and our nursing directors are right around the corner from our office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ware, do you have a question?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. I hadn't heard about the program. Very, very well done, detailed oriented. But I can't help, and I know there's others in the room that feel the same way. The detail that you guys give, for example, the information that's given to families, that support that was brought up earlier, the additional medical support that they get, the continuity of care while they're there in your custody. I know this is not your area, but I know there's individuals like myself that can't help but think that's everything that these people are asking for when they have members die in custody. So if you can do this for this program, and it's needed without a doubt, how come we can't do it to stop these in custody deaths? And I'm just frustrated with that piece because we've had other departments from the sheriff. We know you're doing some great work, but in this area, I'm sure these people here appreciate the information for their loved ones, but if their loved ones died because of overdose, they will not care about all the great work you're doing because of that piece. And that's what I'm struggling with at this point. More of a statement than a question.
No, I definitely empathize with that. And I can only speak to the efforts that my unit is doing, but I've been in positions on the department prior to this where some of those frustrations do carry over. And I will say that the Sheriff's Department and the Detention Services Bureau are at this point constantly looking at ways to improve.
Anyone else before I jump into my questions? Want to make sure I got to everyone else. Okay, great. It seemed to me, and I'm sorry if I did not observe it correctly, that the majority of your presentation focused on people who are hard of hearing. But I know that there's many other services you might provide. Can you give me an example of something other than serving people who are hard of hearing? Because that's what I took away from the majority of your presentation. So sorry if I missed it. But.
No, and I will say the presentation focused on that because visually that's probably the most difficult to try to explain to somebody. So that's why the effective communication piece focused on a lot of that. One of the things that we have started doing recently is we are working with our reentry services director, Patricia Ceballos, to get more inclusion with those with disabilities into reentry services programs, education, the incarcerated worker programs, and the different classes and educational pieces that are available to them. Because that's one of the things that the ADA demands. It demands that there's not discrimination against anybody with a disability solely on the basis of those disabilities. So right now, and some of that has been limited by the construction that has to be completed before we can house multiple people. But that is one of the things we're exploring is getting more of the educational pieces out there. And in the future, as our technology also expands and we put tablets into the hands of our incarcerated population, a lot of the educational pieces will be available in there as well.
Can you provide us with an example of how you might serve someone who is seeing impaired? We heard a lot about hearing impaired, but what about
So we
sight
also
impaired?
offer Braille material on our stationary items that we give out to IPs. We also offer them audiobooks and things like that.
So the unit's just about a year old, but the ADA passed the 90s. Why now? Why is it not been started sooner?
Well, I would not say that there wasn't a recognition for the need for the unit sooner. But due to some retirements and then the pandemic, the creation of the unit was delayed.
And a lot of your hearing impaired technology that you showed us during this presentation was via a screen or a tablet. Do you have ASL trained staff at each of the facilities? And are their hearing impaired at all of the facilities, or are they housed in a particular unit to provide additional services? Or can you explain that to us? Are you able to explain that to us?
We do have individuals on the Sheriff's Department who translate ASL, not many that are certified. We currently do have a few employees that are getting ASL certification. But beyond just those technological methods, if a on-site interpreter is somebody's preferred method of communication, we have made arrangements for that as well.
And then my last question, and we'll go to the public questions when I'm finished. Thank you. You laid out some of the grievance procedures that folks could, if they had a question or if they felt like they needed additional assistance. But aren't those assessments about whether or not they need a disability, some type of assistance because of a disability, that's not assessed at intake?
It is the grievance procedure is just one of those methods of communication. It's rarely resorted to by any of the individuals that we've interacted with. More often than not, the communication piece is that phone call or a request.
Would that also apply to mental health challenges?
Yes, but they would not be routed to the ADA unit would be routed to our mental health
To mental
services.
health services. Okay. Dr. Brown, did you have one more question?
To follow up to the neurodivergent question, with people entering jail, the anxiety level and everything, plus the workers there in the environment. I mean, how that's something I would really be interested in seeing how you cope with and see how you manage that. It's just a statement more than a question for a later date, because it's got to be through the charts when somebody, you know, just entering jail, that how that would make a person feel, and seeing it in the noise and the people working in the jails. I mean, it has to be one big mental or neurodivergent challenge or issue. So my hat goes off to you, but
Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine the sensory difficulties that would be experienced by somebody going through that. But not detentions related, but one of the things the sheriff's department did push through over the last couple of years is that blue envelope program, where our for the public interaction and during traffic stops, they have been given the ability to make themselves easily identifiable.
why don't you do more advertisement about the blue envelope? Why don't you tell? I mean, you know, a lot of people probably still don't know about that. Why it's a great program.
I do know that at a lot of community events, the Blue Envelope program goes out to spread the word. And we regularly, or the Blue Envelope program regularly works with some of the disabled community to do that. And recently, there have been several training sessions with all of the major law enforcement agencies in San Diego to spread the knowledge of the Blue Envelope program.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. I'm sorry, G, I didn't look that way.
Putting somebody in ADSEC or solitary confinement, and they fall under ADA, the American Disabilities Act. You have procedures and a protocol set up to deal with individuals who fall under ADA and are put in solitary confinement?
Unless somebody would normally have been classified as administrative separation, they shouldn't be placed in administrative separation simply on the basis of their disability. And that's why our jail population management unit is one of those regular partners of ours in this effort.
Say that somebody who is ADA ends up in ADSEC. What, do you have procedures to monitor them? Maybe they have to be in a wheelchair. And they put them in solitary without a wheelchair. What are the procedures?
Well, that part does or should not be happening, because the cells, yes, we have had several individuals who were full-time wheelchair who have been housed in administrative separation, not because of their wheelchair, but because of other behaviors in custody. And so a lot of the construction modifications that are being made to the facility are to ensure that those administrative separation modules have accessible cells and showers. Thank you.
Norris, do you have people signed up to speak?
Yes, I have one in person.
Okay. I'll start there.
Yes. So I'll call Sabrina Whittle.
Hello, Sabrina Weddle, Saxon Rodriguez's sister. That presentation was nice. I feel like I might have an answer for one of your questions, which is why now? Because there was a lawsuit. There was a payout. That's why. And it's unfortunate that lives have to be lost and taxpayers such as ourselves have to continue to pay out for there to be change. Basically, deaths have to happen, lives have to drop, us grieving families have to come here and vocalize our concern, our care for things such as this to happen. I hear neurodivergent come up at this meeting quite often. I'm a registered behavioral technician. I work hand in hand with doing ABA. I just had my CPI training the other day, which is 12 hours. What are they doing for our neurodivergent children? And the fact that it doesn't stop at 18, it continues on. So when we speak about children, we also have to remember that they grow up to be an adult. And I mean, again, like you said, that presentation was focused on for those who are hearing impaired. But what about those with sensory issues? Not only do I have a brother who's dead from San Diego County Jail, but I have a brother who was paralyzed from the chest down. If he were to be arrested, what accommodations do they have for them? And what about that 7 days? I mean, Pedro Jr. filed a motion to be seen by a psychiatrist, and they came knocking at his door when he was brain dead at the hospital. Thank you.
Next, we will call Yusuf Miller.
Yusef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody campaign. And I want to thank the lawyer group out of San Francisco that did a class action lawsuit on San Diego County and the Sheriff's Department, which one of those class action lawsuits pertained to ADA requirements that we were out of requirement on, and 6 other things. So yes, that is the answer to why now. And then along with that, I have some questions on the presentation. How many hours, what hours are the nurses and the SRNs, the RNs and SRNs available for these kind of check-ins and things like that? I mean, we know people are being taken in all hours of the day, and we don't want it to be like just a 9 to 5 issue. So people might slip through the cracks. Number 2, the tablets. I'm hearing that tablets are being withheld as punishments for some people. So I hope this is not true, but this is what I'm getting from some of the complaints that we're hearing that are sent to us, and then also the complaint procedures that we talked about and you demonstrated. Are they posted, frequently or throughout the jail so people will know? I know people. They say they hear it at intake. No one that I've ever questioned know about it at intake. I just want to know, how do we ensure that people are, constantly aware of what these procedures are? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Deanna Serna.
Hello. I just want to say thank you guys for actually showing up prepared and making a presentation. I think some of your coworkers in the back row who usually come to these meetings never have answers for us, and the questions are always continuing. And I just want to say, because we always ask them if they can let Kelly Martinez know that we want her to attend these meetings because they are under her. We want to ask you guys as well, if you could please ask Kelly Martinez to come and attend our meetings and answer the families. And I'm just wondering, what are you 3 personally? I know you guys just started this this project or whatever, but what are you 3 personally trying to do to prevent jail deaths under your guys' watch? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Dr. Frischman.
Good evening. Thank you. I wasn't going to speak, but given the presentation, I wanted to add now to what Sabrina and Yusuf said, specifically for the part about lawsuits. The class action lawsuit, San Francisco, they actually had basically asked for permission. It was court mandated for a tour inspection of the jail based on ADA. And I think that's important because, again, based on what people have said and the fact that you've got impacted families here that give you testimony about how they lost loved ones, it's safe to say that the jail has failed and that the status quo has been not compliance with ADA, and that most importantly, they're not doing this voluntarily. So this is nice, it's good. But obviously, again, if CLERB and others don't play a role in oversight of this and ensure, like what you're doing, calling them to this meeting and having them give testimony on the record about what their program is, how they're taking account for ADA, then it's not going to happen. And I worry that the Sunshiny report makes it sound like this new program is going to work and that the problems that have existed in the past will just go away. We know that given the amount of people that have died in custody, it's not the case, and the sheriff's reluctance to make any serious changes in the culture as well as in the policies for how the jails operate. So thank you for this step. Hopefully you'll continue to do this oversight, and also what's being referenced by the community here, that you'll look into it and be aware and know about things like the lawsuits. And if that's really the impetus, the driving force behind why the sheriff's making the changes, then you need to know that, instead of have this notion that the sheriff's department is taking credit for making these changes on their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Paloma Serna.
My name is Paloma Serna. I'm with the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and Saving Lives in Custody, California. I hope the presenters did not leave, because I hope that they that the Sheriff Department really wants to hear the public comments. And so the thing is, I think I have another answer too for why the change. You know, in 2018, Frankie Greer he was medically diagnosed of having seizures, and he was placed on a top bunk. They paid out $8 million in his lawsuit. He used to be an engineer and musician. Now he needs medical attention. He can't take care of himself. So this is one of the reasons why there's a change, but we will see how it plays out. Because, you know, in custody deaths and people that survive in custody death are injured badly. So I guess time will tell. Thank you.
Chair Pintar, that concludes our request to speak. We have one comment to be read for the public.
Submitted from Deidre McLeod. My name is Deidre McLeod, and I'm a constituent of Board Supervisor Joel Anderson, District 2. My pronouns are she/her. While tonight's presentation is about the Sheriff's Office Americans and Disabilities Act response, I'd like to take this opportunity to comment on CLERB's compliance with ADA. I have an invisible disability that makes public speaking almost impossible, but does not impact my desire to be part of the conversation about holding law enforcement accountable. For almost 2 years, my written comments were read into the record during CLERB meetings, but that was abruptly stopped several meetings ago without notice. I am asking that CLERB reinstate this practice or explain publicly why the board no longer chooses to accommodate people like me. If a person attending the Zoom meeting has submitted a statement and that statement was read, fits within the individual comment time limit and time remains during the period set aside for public comment, those written comments should be read into the record as a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disability Act.
Yeah, that concludes all our requests.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, which is Executive Officer's Report. So this we'll start with A, an overview of activities by our Chief Deputy and staff.
Thank you, Chair Pintar. I will start with the staffing update. We were able to extend one conditional job offer to for the special investigator position. The candidate accepted the offer. The Human Resources Department is completing all necessary background checks and all required paperwork, and we hope to have a start date soon. We are still looking for another special investigator position to be filled, so we continue to hunt for another expertise. And at the moment, we are exploring our options with FGG HR. So hopefully by the next board meeting, we have some updates. I have some updates in reference to our contract for in custody death. As I mentioned during our August 13 meeting, we have new counsel who will help us with the Public Record Act activities for this contract. On August 23rd, our Public Record Act counsel sent a letter to the Sheriff Department legal advisor in response to all the replies that the vendor, the Mountain Whisper Light, has received. And we are waiting for the responses actually from the Sheriff Department in reference to our letter. Yeah, on another side, actually, the Mountain Whisper Light continue to seek the data from different vendors, and they submitted a mass request to the Health and Human Services Agency with the County of San Diego. We received actually a call from the council who represent the HHSA last week, proposing to connect the vendor with individuals at the department instead of taking the PRA portal route, and we are moving forward with this. Yes.
No, we would just like to thank the HHSA for their willingness to work with CLERB and its vendor as a properly contracted party, rather than having CLERB have to go through the county's public record portal. It'll be much more helpful.
All right, so so as of now, we are still in the data collection phase of the study. Next, I will talk about the Adobe Right Management and the new county accounts for the board members. I know that we said that this is going to be the last meeting that we share the documents, the printed documents. Unfortunately, we witnessed, actually not ourselves, it's the board members witnessed a lot of hiccups. Some group were able to log in and view the secure documents. Some were unable to log into their accounts. Some were able but unable, able to log in but unable to see the secured document. So I have approved a LOE level of efforts to have a Paraton team to assist each individual board member to check what exactly they need using their personal devices to be able to log into their accounts and view the documents. Myself and our admin lead, Aurora, and of course with the support of our IT crew program manager, we are working on the scheduling. Once the dates are cleared, we will notify everyone. Most probably it's going to be in person. So with that, we anticipate to have November meeting. We're gonna go completely online, not October. We will continue to send the packets for October 2nd meeting. All right, next, just give me 1 second to fix this guy here. All right, next I will talk about attachment C, which is the case status for each case. This is already uploaded online and available printed outside. I heard one of the public mention that the attachment C no more available. It is available every time we have board meeting, unless otherwise we have a special meeting where we have to postpone talking about the attachments for the next board meeting. If there is any question in reference any of the cases, please go ahead and send us your question or concern to clerb@sdcounty.ca.gov. Attachment B, which is the workload report. For August, we received 10 new cases, closed 17 cases, 10 by board action and 10 by board action and 7 procedurally closed by staff. Like I said, attachment B is available online, and also we have printouts outside if anybody is interested in looking at more details. Attachment D, which is the correspondence to full CLERB, also available online, and we have printouts outside the meeting room. We received also update from the probation department in reference to CLERB policy recommendation case base 23088, which is attachment E. On August 20th, 2024, we received an update from the probation department in reference to CLERB policy recommendation 23088. We learned that the CLERB policy recommendation verbiage incorporated in multiple sections at the institutional service sections, and this will be submitted through the department policy and legislation unit for review. We requested to be updated as soon as the revision passed the review unit and the new policy is implemented. And that concludes my reports. Back to you, Chair Pintar.
Thank you, Naris. I have on my list for the board chair's report today, introducing our new executive officer. Before I give him a chance to introduce himself, I just wanted to make a couple of remarks based on some of the questions and comments I heard during the public agenda, public remarks today. Last month, it was raised about whether someone asked whether or not I had asked the sheriff's department, Sheriff Martinez, at our meeting with the sheriff's leadership, if she would attend an upcoming meeting. And I did announce that night that we did in fact invite her at that meeting and that she's agreed to come in the fall. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone heard that we gave that report last month and that she is going to be coming at an upcoming meeting, and that will be out on a public agenda pretty soon. Another member of the public asked about a list of recommendations that we have made to the Sheriff's Department and the status of them. We have a pretty good list of all of those recommendations, along with where they stand in terms of if we've received a response from the Sheriff's Department yet, or what that response is, or what might be holding it back. We are going to schedule that full report to a public meeting so everyone can hear and see. We'll put a template up on the screen so everyone can see it. I have been holding that back a bit because we were waiting for our new executive officer to start. But I think that our meeting agenda or our schedule is getting a little bit more regular, and that will be at an upcoming meeting. And we do have a pretty good list of all those recommendations and where they are. I reported last month that the county has begun the process of interviewing applicants for the District 4 representatives for this to CLERB that are currently absent. We are missing 2 representatives from District 4. I participated in a round of interviews a couple of weeks ago, and I know that those interviews have gone on to the next phase with the county finance and government group staff. So I'm hoping that we will have those appointments fairly soon, and then we will have a full board. And with that, now I'm going to give our new executive officer a chance to introduce himself. I know that many of you probably saw the news release that came out from CLERB and saw the article that was in the San Diego Union Tribune, but today is Brett Kalina's first day on the job, and rather than me introduce him, I will let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Brett Kalina. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am now a former special agent with the FBI. I have been or had been for 20 years. So my retirement was just about 10 days ago. I have prior to that time, I went to law school and was an attorney practicing privately in Arizona, North Dakota, and Minnesota for about 10 years before I started with the FBI. Without getting into too much about my background within the FBI, which is mostly on complex, long-term overseas investigations, I want to address the one big question that a lot of people have already been asking me, which is why CLERB and why take this job? And I will start off with that. Today has been a fire hose of information, and I expect that to be that way for some period of time. And so hopefully you'll give me a little bit of grace to get caught up in all of these things. But most important to me is the mission of CLERB and what it stands for and why it's here, and the fact that I am a huge advocate of transparency, of advocacy, of accountability, and outreach. And those are four things that I really think that the CLERB is here for. And so that's what I hope to take from my skills that I've learned over the years to take into this new role. And I'm looking forward to the job. Thank you.
Thank you. And you were still smiling at the end of the day when I saw you after your first day here. And one thing I would just also add, so many of you saw his bio. It was in a news report last week. One of the things that impressed us about Brett was the role that he's played in doing outreach while he was at the FBI and while he was a supervisory agent. And he has expressed to us very directly that he is not afraid of it. He's not afraid of being out in the community and from hearing from folks directly, and he intends to do that. I would just ask that everyone give him a chance to get caught up a little bit before we see him out there too much, but he's committed to doing that. And thank you for being here tonight. Okay, we are now going to go to new business. Hang on. Sorry. We don't have any, and we don't have any unfinished business. We'll go straight to board member comments. Anyone have comments? Right. Yes, Dr. Brown.
Okay, thank you, my friend. Welcome. Thank you, Norris, for carrying the load, all the hard work you did with us. I want to thank you for all your work. Brad, I want to say to you, the work here is inspiring. It's difficult to hear some of the things we hear. You're going to carry it home with you, but we got to do our best towards our fellow human beings. And with that, I just want to say welcome, and I'm sure you can rely on the board and anyone part of this organization to be there for you, to help you with anything. So.
Anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead, Ariana.
Thank you. I wanted to ask for presenters and trainers, when they come, if they can stay during the whole section, which includes the public comment. I wasn't sure if the presenters were able to hear the public comment, and I know it's not required, but I would like for folks to hear what the public has to say, because this is all a learning process. So I do request that if we're able to make that for the staff when they come, and if they can provide materials in advance.
Yes.
Because I think it is helpful for us to have a copy for the public and for us to use as a resource. Thank you. Thank you, Norris.
That's a great suggestion. I was thinking that today, that it's awkward. When someone's giving a presentation, I want to look at them. It makes it easier for me to understand them, but I'm frequently turned around looking at the presentation. So it would be great to have them in advance prior to hearing the presentation. Go ahead.
I was also going to ask about the policy, because I did take a note of that. So just thank you for the public for making their comments. And thank you, Chair, for that update.
Go ahead.
I would also like to welcome the new executive officer, and I do have a question for him. Have you been to Deadwood, South Dakota?
Yes, I've been to Deadwood, South Dakota. I actually grew up in North Dakota, but my family was raised in Southwest North Dakota, and so Deadwood is and the Black Hills are very special to me. I really enjoy that time, but I like to get back. I still have family back in the Midwest, but San Diego is my home. It has been for 20 years, and as of now, it will always be.
Been to Deadwood, you've been to Sturgis.
I have never been to Sturgis.
Any other board member questions or comments? I just had one more. We had several people ask very specific questions after the ADA presentation tonight. And I would like somebody, I don't know if that's Naris or Aurora or who, to go through those questions and make sure that we come up with a response that members of the public receive after the presentation tonight. Thank you. Okay, we will now move to board member questions for the sheriff and probation liaisons. This is the board's time to ask questions of our department representatives. Officer Lewin and Lieutenant Perkins. Who's going first? I guess you're the lucky one tonight.
Was nice to meet the new executive officer. Looking forward to working with you, Brett. You have my card.
Did you have anything for us from last month? I don't recall. I'm sorry. Okay, do we have questions for our probation liaison tonight? All right, looks like you got off easy. Okay.
Very well.
Thank you. Lieutenant Perkins?
Evening. I'd also like to welcome, it's not pronounced Kalina? Kalina. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Kalina. I look forward to working with you. We over here at the Sheriff's Department, Division of Inspectional Services, we try to have a good relationship with CLERB, get you everything you need to do your, carry out your mission. So if you need anything, just let me know.
Any questions for our sheriff's liaison from CLERB? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone to mark your calendar for the October board meeting. It's at an unusual date. It's not at our typical second or third Tuesday, second Tuesday. It's going to be on October 2nd. I believe that was due to just this room being available. No? Oh, because NACOL. Sorry, couldn't remember. Because NACOL, but the meeting is on October 2nd. So making sure everybody knows, and we will also send out a reminder to our listserv.
It's the second and falls on Wednesday.
It's second.
Second,
Sorry.
correct.
Okay. It is on October 2nd. Please mark your calendars. We will also send an invite out to our listserv. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. We'll ask council to please call us into closed session.
Yes, thank you, Chair Pintar and CLERB board members. This evening, we have 11 cases for summary hearing pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957 as described in the agenda. And that concludes my read-in.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you on the 2nd.